Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I've got Silvia from Colorful Foresight with me. She came back. Um,
Thank you for inviting me.
you're welcome. Hello, Fatima. I see you're the first one here. Ding, ding, ding. I don't know. You get a prize. I'll think of something. But and what's that? Oh, I forget now. YouTube does ads automatically, and we have no control over it anymore. So you could get an ad the beginning of a stream, the end of a stream, in the middle of a stream. If you're just watching, you're going to suddenly have an ad pop up and you'll be like, what the hell? We have no control over it anymore. That's YouTube. But if you let the ad play through, then we get a percentage of a payment off of that, like a couple of pennies or something. So you don't have to watch the ad through if you don't want to. I get irritated and click as soon as it says skip ad. I'm clicking the button. Um, let's see, we got Septima is here, and Book Bewitch is here, and Scorpio Mama's here. And I want to start off with what happened to me on Friday,
What
which
happened?
was probably the most phenomenal thing I've ever had happen to me. I don't know how many people keep up with the music business and the music world. My son's a musician. I love music, so I tend to keep up with it. The Beatles dropped a brand new song on Friday. It's the last Beatles song ever, with all four of them performing. It starts with a demo tape that John made back in the early 70s or mid 70s, whenever it was, a few years before he was murdered. And he at that time he wasn't doing concerts, he wasn't doing recording stuff, but he was constantly playing music and recording stuff at home. And at the time, he had what was considered a top of the line cassette recorder that a lot of musicians used to record demos on. And so he had recorded this song called Now and Then. And something I found out after the fact of learning about all of this is that he had left a note on that demo for Paul. He wanted to make sure that Paul got that song. Fast forward to the early 90s, and the three remaining Beatles, Paul, George, and Ringo, get together for the anthology series that they remastered all of their stuff to put on new albums to put out. And in that batch of the two new album sets, there was a new song on each of them that were written by John that they were able to do the music for. But I don't think John was actually included in the recording because the technology didn't exist at that time. But there was this third song, Now and Then, and they really tried to get it to work. And they couldn't separate it because it was recorded on a single track player. They couldn't separate the voice and the music. And so there were times when listening to it when the piano would overpower John's voice and you couldn't really hear him, or vice versa. And so it just kind of got put in the cupboard and forgotten about for a while. Fast forward to the early 2020, 2021, Peter Jackson of the Lord of the Rings fame, the director, he wanted to do a documentary called Get Back about the lifespan of the Beatles and the phenomenon that they were to the world and to the music business. Because everything they did was prefaced with, that's never been done before. You can't do that. And they were like, oh, yeah, hold my beer. Let me show you how it's done. And that was their way of dealing with things. And I mean, they're four very different individual men who were like brothers. They had fights and they broke up and they got back together. And there was a lot of that back and forth. And so in the 90s, they tried, George And Ringo went to Paul's studio in England to see if they could finally pull out this third song and record it. And again, they ran into the same problem. The technology didn't exist for them to separate the voices and the music. We weren't there yet. And they worked on it. George actually laid down guitar licks on the song itself because they were trying to think, well, maybe if we just play along, we can somehow remaster it, and it just didn't work. So again, back into the shelf. Well, then when Get Back came out like a year later, or that was in the 90s, then when Peter Jackson came along, 2020, 2019, 2020, whenever he started working on it, he and his team got with computer specialists for AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, which is where you teach the machine how to learn on its own. You can give a machine a set of instructions and it can learn from it. It's, all of the horror films we've ever seen of AI taking over, that's machine learning. And so a lot of people have very distorted views of what it is and what it can do. Anyhow, so Peter Jackson was able to go back into all of this old archival uh, video footage and music footage and was able to pull out and remaster a lot of that for the documentary, which is a fabulous documentary. If you ever have like 2 days to binge watch it, do so. It's called Get Back. And so while they were doing that, Paul was like, I need to give Peter this song and see if he can pull out John's voice. He did. And they were able to take George's guitar playing and bring it into the mix. They had John's voice so crystal clear it sounded like he was in the room singing with him. And then Ringo put down the drums, Paul put down the bass, and they brought in an orchestra to do strings, and they completely reworked this. I mean, it's the same song that John sang, but they gave it the body of its life, and I get choked up talking about it. When I heard it, just the MP3 came out Thursday. All you heard was just the music of it. And when I got home from work, my son was like, Mom, have you heard this? Oh my God. I'm like, no, I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to do it later tonight after everybody goes to bed. And I can go sit out on the patio, put in my earbuds, and I can just listen, because there was no video Thursday. The video didn't come out. The music video didn't come out until Friday. And so as I sat on my patio listening to that, tears streaming down my face, I could feel that song. And about halfway through the song, I felt John Lennon. It felt like he wrapped his arms around me. And I heard him very clearly say to me, throw the cards to know my thoughts. And he repeated it several times. And I just sat there and I kept re-listening to the song over and over again. And it just, every time I listen to it, I still get the same reaction every time I listen to it. But I had never really channeled anybody that deeply before, especially when I wasn't expecting it. And it was so strong. I could physically feel it. That's how strong he came through. And so I came in the house and I took out the camera and everything. And I did like a 30-minute video where I threw the cards on it to see what John's message was, which was very hopeful and very, very comforting. So if you want to see that, after the show, I'll put a link in to the description box.
I definitely have to watch that.
Yeah, and it was so powerful. I mean, I couldn't sleep that night. That's how powerful that song hit me. I was up like all night long because Friday I had taken the day off because my brother had surgery I had to get him to the surgery center in the morning. And so Friday, the music video dropped. And when you see the pictures and everything, the way that it was Peter Jackson's, look, I'm already crying. It was Peter Jackson's first music video, as he put it. But he tied in archival photos and videos and interplayed it with Paul and Ringo currently, to where it looked like they're singing side by side with George and John, who are both gone now. Now, George didn't come through. I don't know, maybe he's already gone beyond and has no desire to come back. And I get it. That we all get that. But John was just, it was like, whoa. I mean, it was so deep. And every time I've sat and just listened to it, I feel him again. It's just such a strong connection. I've never felt anything that strong in my life. And so I just wanted to share that with y'all. I mean, I know I did a little video, but I dropped it like in the middle of the night on Thursday night. So I don't know how many people even know it's out there. And but I'm still affected by it even today. It's like ever since Friday morning when the music video came out, it's like I've got to listen to it several times a day. I can't. It's like all weekend I've been listening to it over and over and over again. I just can't stop listening to it because I saw an interview with someone who was kind of involved in the process going all the way back to the 70s. And they said that on the original cassette was a note that said for Paul. So John wanted Paul to know that this was written for him because it sounds like a love song.
Oh,
and it is
really?
a love song. It's a love song of brother to brother.
How good is that for the collective right now? A love song.
Yeah, but it's for like brother to brother, not like a romantic love song, but just a deep love for one another.
That's good.
And I feel very strongly that Paul's response of getting all of this done and getting this video, this music video now done and out there, is his response to John of sending the love back, and it's like it completes the circle. And it's the last song that will ever have all four of them originally on. That it's not just pulled from something else. It's the last song that the four of them all worked on at one point or another in their lives. And so it's the last Beatles song ever. And there's a lot of people who don't give a crap about the Beatles. They don't care for their music, whatever. I have always loved the Beatles. You go look on my social pages, you'll see John Lennon's song Imagination written in, what are my thoughts? What are my aspirations? That song is my mantra for life. That's what I've tried to live by. And
I can't wait to hear it.
It's very profound. I didn't play the song in the other video because I'm not set up for music reactions. And I know you have to have special things set up for how you do that, and because you can get hit in all kinds of ways if you're not set up right. And so I just linked it to the original videos and said, just go watch. And they did a little like 14-minute documentary video on how they created this music video, which is fascinating. And then I saw interviews with some people that were kind of involved, where I learned that John had written a note on the tape saying for Paul, so that Paul would know that was meant to go to him, But when you listen to the words, it very clearly, at least for me, makes me feel like it was John's way of saying goodbye. Because it was only a couple of years later that he was murdered, and then of course we lost George Harrison in, was it 2001, 2002 to cancer. So Paul and Ringo are the only two left. That's it. And they're both up in their 80s. So I'm hoping they're around for another 20, 30 years, but who knows? They're both fairly healthy men, but still, they lived a pretty raucous life when they were
I
younger.
would think that's wild, like when you hear the final results, like for them too.
It is, like I said, it was one of the most profound things I've ever felt in my life. I have never in my entire life felt anything that strong as I did Thursday night when
Wow.
John came to me the first time. And it's so strongly that I actually, had to like come set everything up and come do a video. It was like, I can't just do something for just myself. It just, I felt like he was like, no, 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 this is for everybody. You need to do this, And so that's kind of where we're starting, is just how in the mid 70s, John wrote a song that was very prophetic. It was kind of his goodbye. Like maybe he had a flash of foreknowledge that he wasn't going to be there much longer. Who knows? But it was very clearly a love song, but it was more like a goodbye song, because the premise of the song is to remember me now and then, and so it's a very poignant song. I highly recommend people go listen. It's already got like over 8-9 million views, and the video just came out Friday, and it's like, whoa. You don't normally see songs just take off like that. And but so going into what Silvia and I had planned, if I could get the tears to stop. Um, but what Silvia and I had planned was trying to do some channeling, throw some cards, and try to go into 2024. What's coming? What can we expect? What are some things that we can feel is going to be happening? So, Silvia, take it away. I'll let you kind of talk it from here while I gather myself and block my mic and my camera so I can blow my
Well,
nose. And I'll
after I
be back
finish
in a second.
talking, I'm wondering if you can bring John Lennon in for this. Okay.
I'm gonna try. I'm
Yeah.
gonna try.
So I think it's no mistake you mentioning this, even though you're saying, yeah, you're repeating what you experienced. That's part of what's going on with 2024. At least that's what the universe is working on. Reminder of that fellow humanity getting together again. I like that you clarified to me it wasn't like a love song per se, but like a human thing. And even though he said to remember me now and then, um, it's just that vibration of like the timing of this song to be released. So I mentioned like in my videos in 2023, the energy of like the golden age and the Aquarian age, it was supposed to start like around 2012, and then it tried again and again. And there's a lot of things that we all been seeing. If you watch like on the news and things that feels like they're trying to prevent that Aquarian age, so to speak. There's a lot of things that happened in the 70s that it was very moving forward, and it wasn't happening. So it's no mistake that you're sharing this. It's no mistake that it's coming out, and it's actually very promising. That's what I'm feeling, very promising,
Yeah.
because
It's a very hopeful song. It's sad.
right.
It's very hopeful.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm just because it's funny. One of the things I wrote is the 70 vibes are coming back, like the community, more cooked meals and stuff like that. And here you are bringing up something about in the past because because of like people being more like health conscious in the USA, and I think even around the world, they're learning how to cook more. So it's like people getting more in touch with their food, and they're getting more in touch like how to cook, even if they don't want to, even if they do meal cooking, meal planning where they do it like twice a week. This is part of the 2024 vibe. This is all good. Even though we have artificial intelligence, we could pray that artificial intelligence used well, it's very good. Like what's happening with the creation of that song. Nothing is bad or good per se. It's who programming behind it. And also AI is going with the consciousness, right? AI is going to be part of us. So it's depending on us at how we as humanity evolve.
Right. And to
So
break in, because I work in computer science, I mean, I'm not a computer person. I can't
yeah,
explain to you how it works,
right.
but I know enough from working with faculty and professors that do this in their research. And I've heard them talk and laugh about, some of the crazy theories that people throw out. Oh, AI is going to take over and do this and do that. And they're like, no, it doesn't do that. So I've kind of gotten a better grasp, I guess, of what AI can and can't do. Now, maybe 100 years from now, maybe then we'd have to worry. But as of right now, it's learning how to do functions and think like a human will, as far as being able to kind of think ahead of what the next step will be. It's not just configuring what's happening right now. Okay, but now what's the next step? What's the next step? Um, so that's, it's not as scary as a lot of people try to make it out to be. Um, in the wrong hands, it could be made scary, yes, but uh, just because the computers only go away by what it's programmed to do. So that's on the programmers, and until they can program themselves, so to speak, build themselves, but not without our input, they're still reliant upon the programmer. So,
You know what reminds me of? Like I don't know, I can't prove it, but there's been other society that came and went. We might have had advanced society ahead of us. You hear ET, they talk about things that 10,000 years away. So if anything goes bad, they're constantly changing timeline. Even like Shari mentioned last year in 2023, she was reading Jesus, and she kept talking about how Jesus was something like, if I remember, I'll put it in the comment on the Cherry video, like timeline, like he was kind of shifting to the timeline, to a better timeline. Could have gone
yeah.
skewed, which we could see, like what's going
Right. I was equating it with like in the Avengers movie
Yeah.
ending, when
Mm-hmm.
they're going back for the stones, and you have the Hulk who meets with the master, and he needs her time stone, and she's like, if you take the stone from me, then that splits us off from the timeline into worse things that will happen. And he's like, but if we take it and bring it back and put it back at exactly the same moment, then the other timeline never existed. That's how they explained it in the movie, which I found fascinating. I was like, I never really quite thought about it that way.
We,
So
I wonder about that. You hear about the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect, it's like a term that comes up like what people thought they heard or they swear they heard by it. But
yeah,
now if you see it on, social media or said, it's saying something totally different. What is that about? Maybe switch the timeline. It could also be
yeah,
people erasing history a little bit. We don't know. But the two cards I got, could who was a little nervous? Some people a little nervous about AI. Just like humanity, right now, as we know, they're still doing sneaky things to prevent, like making sure we say and fight rather than listening to us, remain stuck. And also, they kind of sweet talk with you with drama. So that's why
yeah,
our goal is for 2023 and 2024, do things you love, because they can't
yeah.
do anything prevent you from doing things. I know I've said it before, but it keep going. You do
Well,
things you
again,
love.
and that goes back to one of the Beatles' last songs that John and Paul wrote together. All you need is love.
Right,
All you need is love.
right. Because wouldn't they
That's
hate
about the extent of my singing voice.
the
Um,
shadowy aspect? Would hate hijack, hate like us being doing things that we love in our heart. Like me doing these videos, one of it's like me communicating with others. It's something that I love doing that I was trying to do for a long time, but it just wasn't happening.
yeah.
So if you're like a negative Nelly thinking all that, you have there is a lot
Well,
of things.
and you have to remember the law of attraction teaches us that what you put your focus on, you bring into existence for yourself. So if you're constantly saying, I'll never be pretty, I'll never be skinny, I'll never make enough money to pay all my bills, if that's what you're constantly putting out there, then the universe is going to go, okay, if that's what you want, poof, and that's what you get. You have to change that narrative around and not phrase it like one day I'll have enough money. No, because universe has no idea when one day is. You have to start at this point and say, sorry, my phone's going off. You have to go from this point and say, there, okay, shut up. You have to start from this point forward and say, thank you that I'm able to pay all my bills every month. To where if you're grateful for what, even though you don't have it yet, if you put it out there that you're grateful for it, you've already accepted that this is just going to be a fact. The universe has a really uncanny way of being able to make all those pegs line up, and poof, it's there.
And you know what? The last video we did, which I don't remember, but I remember like we were sharing a little bit what we did for 2023. And then we went a little bit into 2024, which actually is positive. And I was really surprised by it. And this is like, I got a gift, vice versa, the tarot. Somebody
Ooh.
gifted me. For years, I was like, I'm not going to get any new deck unless it attracts me. Suddenly I got two, and which is a good sign. So I don't really know how to read this card, but even though we're saying law of attraction, follow your heart and all that, there's always time for do-over, but don't let it take too slow, because this card is double-sided, by the way. So it has like the Knight of Pentacle and then the Knight of Pentacle with the back turned. What I got from that under this context, yeah, don't be too slow to follow your heart, because there is a time frame. They do timeline changes and all that, but we're part of like making sure that happen, even though there are things out there that making sure that we thrive as humanity. So don't be like, oh, I just have to follow my heart. Really start today, follow your heart, because
Yeah, I like what Hypnocity
that would
said.
trigger, like, how many million that saw that video, that's going to tap into something in people,
Yeah.
that love vibe.
Oh, I have been watching music reactors all weekend, especially the young people, young hip hoppers and rock people, we're saying say under 25
Right.
and younger. And it's watching them discover this song and this music. And I was telling my son this morning, the most common statement I've heard coming out of the young people watching this is like, oh, wow, that's real music. They don't make music like
Oh, I
that
got
anymore.
chill. Right?
And it's like, yeah, because once again, the Beatles lead the way on what's the next thing, Now you'll probably see an explosion. I figure we're going to see an explosion of artists and stuff using AI to bring in dead people to come back and sing with them or dance with them or whatever. That's to be expected. It, like anything, it can be exploited, and you're going to get people that exploit it. It's to twist that to a political point of view. You want to be careful that you're able to recognize when something you're watching is real, or is it AI? Or as we used to say back in the day, is it real or is it Memorex? Do you remember those commercials for Memorex cassette tapes? And it was like they were like the best brand you could get. And that was the tagline for the commercial was, is it real or is it Memorex? And
They
because
were
it would
talking
be
about the
like,
quality of music. That's why it was so real, right? It was so
right,
clear,
yeah, because
probably.
you would record on them and it would sound like they were really there talking to you, singing to you, whatever.
You know what I
That's
like? I
what,
like seeing the merge between old school, new school. Like
right.
the better quality of music that was back then, and the new school being able to bring that up with the knowledge of technology. And something one of your followers, Elaine, George
Mhm.
Harrison was very much a light worker.
Oh,
He would
absolutely. He was very plugged in.
he would
Uh,
way ahead of most of us spiritually, and
yeah.
she feels a connection with John Lennon to this day, or George. Which one is it?
Well, then you just had a birthday, right? Because wasn't John's birthday yesterday, day before yesterday, something like that? Um, um,
It's no mistake that this song came out this time. Again, reminding us,
oh,
if all those kids are reacting about, oh, that's real music, the content and the quality, and in a way, you're not ripping off the dead people because John was involved in that song, and so was
no.
George.
And he wrote it and left a note on it for Paul. He
Oh,
wanted to make sure that Paul got that.
mm,
Yoko had the tape, John's wife, and she made sure they got it back in the 90s when they started working on the anthology series. She was the one that gave them that she gave the tape to George and said, John left this for y'all. And so I mean they all went through a phase where they went through the trying to get enlightenment, and they started following the Maharishi, and uh George like got real into it. The others kind of got into it and then kind of faded away from it. It was like, yeah, okay, it's not really my thing. But I think for all of them, it was always about the music that they created together, the music that they created separately. Um, one of the one of the things that kind of pulled them apart, and when they broke up, was just because between the four of them, all of their styles and interest of what they wanted to do musically was changing, and they were all changing differently. And so it was time for them to go their separate ways. I remember when they broke up, it was devastating news. I mean, devastating. People just, you had people crying in the streets over it. It was, that's how globally it affected folks. I mean, a lot of younger people today, I don't think realize the impact that the Beatles had globally across all genres, different types of music, different types of musicians. If you go back with any of them and trace back, you're going to find something somewhere that says, well, I grew up listening to the Beatles, or my parents listened to the Beatles, or I did. There's something about what the Beatles did that brought them to that point of where they are now. So
what's the title of that song? I know you said in there, he said to
it's
remember
called
me now and then.
Now and Then.
So it's that title. You know what it reminds me? Like, kind of saying like the
And the
energy.
Beatles is spelled Beatles. So it's not uh,
Beatles with the S. Oh, now and then. Okay. Now and then. But I'm wondering, it remind me like the merge, between two worlds. Um, twice I had like the two of one. What I'm getting reminded again is that because of like the chaos that's going around the world, it's keeping people confused.
yeah,
Especially we're like in a better situation than in some country that we know are in wars and stuff. They want to keep us in lack of faith. So
yeah.
your job is to tell me for 2024, it regardless of being overwhelmed with so much crap that's going on overseas and in here in the USA, start developing things that nurtures you
Yeah.
because we're all ripple effect. So
Oh
go
yeah. And
following
that's
your
a
heart.
message that all four of them have always put out, that John and Ringo, that Paul and Ringo still put out today, is that
I'm so
you get
happy
out of
seeing
it what
that.
you put into it. and you have to keep going forward. I mean, they both still have very active careers. They both still travel and do performances and write new music, and and it's they both do the old songs from the Beatles in their stuff as well, because they know the fans want to hear that. Um,
And you know what's going to be cool? As you were talking about, like sometimes they do reaction videos. There are going to be a lot of new, younger people, even to older people who do covers. That probably going to do cover for that song.
oh,
How did that bring to the collective?
oh, I'm waiting for the covers to start dropping because
That's cool.
it's a very simple song. It's not a
Right,
very complicated song,
right.
and it's a very simple melody. It's almost a haunting melody, which is why I felt like it was like when John wrote it, he had a flash, whether if he was conscious of it or not, that he wasn't going to be here that much longer.
I'm kind of curious. Why don't you ask John? Whatever happened? Let's do a little
I've
mini.
been sitting here trying to get him to come talk to me.
Right, we can't force it. We can't force it.
No, I mean I'm like I said, it was so strong Thursday, and I felt it a few times over the rest of the weekend, but not like I did Thursday night. That was like
Right.
breathtaking because I'd never had it that strong before,
It says
where
a lot.
I physically felt his arms around me. That's how strong it was.
So I'm
And
gonna let's pull out 4
the
cards.
biggest thing that I keep hearing in my head is that we have to keep loving each other,
That's
because
beautiful.
that was what John was all about, was love. He was a big protesting voice against the Vietnam War, because that's what was raging back then. We were in the middle of the Vietnam War, and he was very outspoken about it, to the point that President Nixon was considering trying to figure out how to get him kicked out of the country, because technically he wasn't an American. I mean, I think he had a dual citizenship.
Right.
Y'all would have to check me on that. I'm
Probably.
pretty sure, because I know Ringo has dual citizenship, and I think Paul does too. Of course, Paul and Ringo have both been knighted by the Queen as well. So, so you have Sir Paul McCartney and Sir Richard Starkey, which is Ringo Starr's real name.
You
I
know what's
don't
great
know if they
with a
could do
lot of
that
the book banning
posthumously
and all
or not.
that? With all the
Say
book
again?
banning and all that, you have this song that come out to remind you again about unification.
Yeah. And speaking out against war, against killing each other.
Isn't that amazing? Good timing.
I mean, it's like that. And that was one of the things that hit me, was like, there is a reason that song was able to be done now in this time frame and come out now in this time frame. And that's because, as a whole, not just our country, but around the world, people need to hear that message.
Ooh, I got chills.
Remember me now and then. Think of the good times we had together. Think of the promise that was there. And that's kind of the vibe of the song. And I'm getting chills again.
Right?
I can feel them again. I'm getting chills again. And again, it just keeps going through my head. It's all about love. We have to love each other. We
And
have
maybe
to
that's
love
why we're
each
getting
other.
that 70 vibes. Because in my lifetime, I mean, that's the earliest I remember. I'm sure there were others, but the 70 to me was like more simple, community oriented. I know maybe in small town they have that stuff like that, but it's totally different.
Yeah, I mean, 60s and the 70s. I mean, the 60s was flower power, and you had communes setting up across the country, and young people that were just unplugging from society. They were like, I don't want to be in the rat race my parents are in.
Hmm.
And they did that for probably about 20 years until around the 80s. And then everybody got bit by the bug of make money, make money, make money. And they kind of forgot that, so your old hippies became the next stockbroker, so to speak. And which is kind of weird when you think about it, but that's just what happened. And but you still have your music, because whether if you enjoy today's music or if there's only a certain genre of music you listen to, I have a very eclectic taste. I like country, classical, jazz, hip hop, R&B, regular rock and roll, pop, whatever. If it's a good song and it sings to me, then I like it. I don't care what kind of music it is. Some people are very rigid about what they listen to, and they only listen to certain things. And it's like, don't, why hamstring yourself like that? Because, and that's something that I got from watching a lot of these young reactors over the weekend, was just the shock and awe of them discovering this band for the first time. Most of them, they've all heard the name. They all know who the Beatles are, and that's about the extent of it. They don't really know anything else about them, they were all come from working class families back in Liverpool and London area in England, growing up in the, late 40s, early 50s. They started playing music together when they were still in school, which was probably 56, 57, right in that area. And Ringo didn't even come into the play yet. They had another drummer that played with him, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. And when they had gone to Germany to do a gig, and their drummer, there was a falling out or whatever happened. Their drummer left, and Ringo was at the club that night playing, just kind of like a session player, just playing for other bands and didn't have a drummer. And it just clicked. And he snatched him up. And one of the things that Paul says in the little documentary that they put with this was that he said, how did he put it? He said, how lucky was I that I had these three men in my life as we went through some of the most phenomenal changes in the world. I mean, because, it was a very volatile time in the 60s and 70s.
And also, it's like it was something refreshing for the American. It wasn't just, like when the European came in, like it was a lot of like people from England started to come in.
Yeah, they were the first. They were the ones that crashed that gate and hit the U.S. like a gale force wind. I mean,
and for
people
a young
here,
country,
promoters and concert promoters and stuff here, were not prepared for what was going to happen when they showed up. I mean, and they were popular in England, and they had, big crowds and stuff, but nothing like what they got here. I mean, it was pure madness from what all of them have said in interviews over the years. No one expected that. One of their last stadium performances, I think, was out in LA or somewhere on the West Coast. And it was like one of the first stadium concerts where you're in a huge sports stadium for a band to play. And they were like, we have no idea if anybody ever heard a lick of music. We couldn't hear the music. The fans were so loud. And the screaming and whatnot was so loud that they couldn't even hear their own music, what they were playing. And the only reason why there's video of that time is because one of their stage people shot a home video, you know, and whatnot. And all you can hear is screams. You don't hear any music. You see their mouths moving, but you don't hear anything. You just hear screams. Um, I mean, when they went on the Ed Sullivan show, which was more or less like a make or break American TV show to be on for any kind of entertainer, no matter what you did, you could make it or be gone for good, depending on what happened on the Ed Sullivan show. And even they were not prepared for what happened when they had the Beatles on. I mean, it blew them away. They didn't know how to cope with it.
So, you know, I mean, I don't think it's a mistake that we're talking about this because of what we're talking about 2024. No mistake the timing of this is happening. It's also like I would think because anything we put into the artificial intelligence, if we're putting this kind of music into artificial intelligence, that's good for the artificial intelligence music. 'Cause a lot of the music, the words, depending on what genre, the words are not very good, and it's not just now. It's been like that for a while. You know, even late 80s and stuff like that. The words, like the word, it had power, and even like I love some of the songs, like 9 Inch Nails and stuff like that. But the words like head like a hole, black at the soul, and now I can't even say it because I'm like, so
it doesn't fit comfortably. Yeah.
Yeah,
and like Oline is saying here, I mean, that was one of the few TV shows that we watched religiously every week.
Only
was
3
the Ed
channels.
Sullivan show. Yeah, we had 3 channels. You had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was it. And you had rabbit ears, and you better hope and pray that the atmosphere was right for you to pick in the station you wanted.
Right.
And people would have like tin foil wrapped around the antennas trying to increase the output, or they would put up an outside antenna outside their house and run it up on the roof. We had one of those. My grandfather had put one up, but there was no cable. First time we had cable TV was in 78, I think it was 77 or 78. I was in high school, and we got cable put in at the house. My grandparents did. And there was maybe 5 or 6 channels that you could watch. The biggest thing, I think the biggest thing with cable was suddenly you had CNN 24-hour news, and people could watch the news anytime they wanted to, which was a very foreign concept. Until that moment, you saw the news at 5 or 6 o'clock local and at 10 o'clock. That's when you saw the news or you read the newspaper. There was no 24/7 networks. That's nothing but news. That didn't exist back then, you know. So if like the president gave a speech, whether if you agreed with him or not, all the stations, that's all you got was the president making a speech. Nothing else played. Your show would get preempted and you would be watching the president. When Watergate happened, that's all that ran on all the channels was Watergate. There was no TV shows, no soap operas, no game shows, no cartoons, no nothing. There was Watergate, and that was it. And it was very, as a kid, it was very irritating because you couldn't watch anything you wanted to watch. All you got to watch was Watergate trials. But
what are you getting like, bringing this up with the song Now and Then? And I already told you what I'm feeling with that with 2024. What are you getting that, how it would ripple
I think
back?
the biggest thing that I got from just the title of the song, because when that first time I heard the song, I just had the title. I knew nothing about it except that it was John wrote a song and George had put some tracks on it and Paul and Ringo finished it up. That's all I knew when I heard it the first time. And it, as I sat and listened to the words, that's when I was like, okay, this is a love song. John's writing a love song to someone saying goodbye, but think about me now and then. Don't let the memory of me disappear.
Wow, think about me.
You know,
That's amazing.
and
We'll all be thinking about him now, that's for sure.
oh yeah, and that was going into it. That's where my headspace was. And then John came in and was like, "Nope, this is what it's about." And and then of course the next day I saw a couple more interviews and stuff, and kind of got the holes filled in. But like I said, the biggest message that he gave me then that he's given me now is we have to learn to love each other. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Palestinian. Doesn't matter if you're white or black, if you're male or female, if you're Christian or not, or if you're a Muslim or not, or Jewish or not, or whatever. None of that matters because we're all people, and we have to learn to love each other. And that's part of what we as light workers, that's part of what we're here for, is to help lead people into the next elevation where the title of who and what we are, the outer skin of who and what we are, no longer matters. It's irrelevant to what's important. And what's important is loving each other and taking care of each other.
Oh,
That's what's important.
I like that.
And um,
That's great. I mean, that's the vibe for 2024 mostly in
I
every
think with
area.
all that we're dealing with right now, with all that's getting ready to come to a head and really explode onto the world, not just in our country, but other countries, whether if it's crooks being finally held accountable and made to pay, whether if it's war breaking out, whether if it's war ending, whether if it's leadership being taken out or militaries being taken out. I mean, there's so many possibilities of what could happen, and I know personally I try to focus on for the most benevolent good for all of us. If we've got to blow something up, you better give me a damn good reason about why we have to do that. And how is it the most benevolent good for everyone? For me to go blow that place up. What's the point? Just
And
more
that's the
dead
point.
people.
They want to
It
keep us
doesn't solve
scared.
anything.
The they meaning like the shadowy aspect. So not we're not going to wishful thinking or pretending all is well. And even looking at that, all you need love. There's a part of me that's a little cynical, but it's because I'm judging. The other night I did a video and I was like, what song could represent when you're being cynical? And it was judgment. Yeah, AI has a good purpose like we are doing now here, but we have to focus on nourishing the consciousness.
I mean, 5 years ago, if you'd have told me I would have had a YouTube channel and talking to people around the world live, hosting a channel, I would have said, you're full of crap. Are you nuts?
Exactly.
That was not in my wheelhouse. I mean, I did not have that on my bingo card. That's for sure.
But that's why artificial intelligence itself is not a bad thing. It's picking up the consciousness of the energy around it. So we have focused on humanity, and not only that, focused on yours. If you can't, we can't really control the other. Actually, the only way we control the other, when I'm getting toothly, is to do things you love, whatever that is. If you do things what you love, you're part of that ripple effect,
exactly.
and all that. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like if
Yeah,
I'm going to stick with being negative, which is in my mind because I'm watching, I need to balance that out with doing things I love. Connect with your family members. Like this morning, Shari did some errands with her, helping out her family. That's all part of it.
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, I could have been an ass and said, no, I can't take you and do this or take you and do that because I've got plans today.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, but I'll do it, but I need to be certain places at a certain time. Other people depend on me. And so,
Saving the world, including doing the very mundane thing, that's very loving.
yeah, exactly. And we have to, a lot of the 70s, a lot of the early 70s was kind of the afterthought of the 60s as people were kind of coming up out of the stupor of the drugs. That was very prevalent in the 60s, but it was a different kind of drug. The 60s, it was all about getting high and getting in touch with spirit and having this profound experience. The 70s, it was about cocaine and speed and let's go, let's go, let's go. And how do I keep this going? And, and the music changed, the atmosphere of people changed.
You mean the
Because
80s? The 80s was more
no,
like
in the
that.
late 70s, it
Oh,
started. I
late
mean,
70s. Oh,
early 70s was kind of the end of the 60s,
right.
kind
Okay.
of just bled over. And then it started morphing in the mid 70s.
Mm.
And then you get into the later 70s and it starts changing. You know, all of everybody's society, everything started changing. And then the 80s became very much a me generation. Everything was about me. What do I want? What do I feel? What
Which
do
is
I
funny, the
want?
80s, number 8, like a wealth thing, right? It became about money more and
Yeah,
more and more.
yeah.
Uh,
But at the same time, the number 8 on its side is infinity, which that's my life path number is the number 8. And so it's like there's good and there's bad, as in all things. There's good and there's bad.
that's true.
You
Yeah.
can use your power for good or you can use your power for bad.
And
What do
just
you
like
choose?
AI,
For?
it could be
Yeah,
used for good or bad.
exactly. And that's what comes down with AI is who's programming it? What's the purpose?
And that's very
What
much
is it
part of
you're teaching that
2024.
machine to do? Uh,
Exactly. That's very much 2024 because if we're going to have a society that confused and anger, because I've been angry past few years, I got caught up to the drama. They want the shadowy aspect want us to bring that. And
yeah.
here comes the Beatles song, who lighten things up and remind us,
Mm.
you
Now
know,
and then, you know, remember us now and then. And the fact that it'll be the last song from a group that had such a profound effect on the world across the board. When we set the first space thing up, with the record of if an alien culture finds us, this was our music and this was our this and this was that. It was a Beatles song that was put on that. And so again, what I mean, it's like they have always kind of been at the forefront of new things changing. Um, and yeah, they get picked on and
you know
made
what,
fun of.
Beatles also brought up the idea of good content because before the music of the Beatles, it was simple, sweet words of the 50s and the 40s. But then the Beatles were one of the, and then everybody else came like that poetic thing with good
Oh
message.
yeah, John and Paul together when they wrote music, it was of a celestial nature. I truly believe. I mean, it came from a space. For those two men to be able to read each other to the point that they were able to create that kind of music and write those kind of lyrics. That I mean, there's a lot of musicians today that would give both their arms to have that kind of clarity and that kind of just initiative to go forward. Um,
Yeah, Hipnicity, just clarifying what you said about the 70s.
yeah, I had friends that I lost a couple of friends to that. Um, I was never into that kind of stuff. I barely even smoked weed back then. It was usually if I was at a party and somebody else had it, okay, that was the extent of that. It wasn't something that I pursued because I just, number one, I couldn't afford any of it. Number two, I didn't like the way it made me sick.
Right.
It
Thank
would,
God.
it was like
Thank
singing
God you didn't
pool.
like it.
I mean, I rarely drink. Now, the few times when I do drink, I usually drink everybody under the table. And they're
I'm
like,
the
how
same
the
way.
hell
I
do
don't
you
really
do
ever
that when you
drink.
don't drink? And I'm like, I don't know.
But when you do, you want to have fun. So you go for it,
I don't remember it when I do. So it's like, let's just not go there. Um,
But again, guys, it's no mistake that Sherry brought the song up and the message behind it.
no,
If you're
I
wondering
mean,
why we're not foretelling 2024, this is all part of the 2024 message.
oh yeah, I
Also
mean,
telling the young kid, put more content into your lyrics.
yeah, I mean, they, one of the first times that the Beatles came to America, they were setting up concert dates to come and play. And one of the venues I think it was in Georgia. It was either South Carolina or it was Georgia. I don't remember which state. And they found out that the the place where the event was going to happen, they had it sectioned off, colored and white, because that's how it was back then. Black and white people did not sit together. They did not drink out of the same water fountains. They did not use the same bathrooms at all. That's the world I grew up in when I was a kid. I remember signs over doors that said colored or white, you know. Um, but when they found out that the area where the fans would be segregated, they were like, "Oh no, 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 that's not allowed. Everybody will just be together." And they wound up canceling their concert in that state because the state wouldn't. Pretty sure it was, maybe it was Alabama. I don't know. It was one of the southern states where they dug in their heels, and this was also in the middle of the civil rights movement. I mean, I grew up in the middle of all of that. So it they broke a lot of records in how they did their music, how they played their music. um, Paul brought in orchestras to play on music with him, which was an orchestra with rock and roll. Who'd have thought? It was not heard of, but he did it, and it worked. And it worked well, to the point that bands are still doing it to this day. You know, they will bring in an orchestra to fill out a song because it makes the song more powerful. There's
Yeah.
something about the sound of those strings and the horns and the whole bit that adds a depth to music that you don't realize is missing until you hear it. And but it just, I guess the strongest message that I got from John, off and on all weekend, and again earlier when he came in and grabbed me and I got the chills all over, was just, we have to learn to love each other. We have to learn to love each other.
Do you
We
feel
have
one
to
way?
learn to look at someone and say, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what gender you want to be. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care, none of that matters. That's all external stuff. What I care about is what's in here. And we, as light workers and empaths, that's part of why there are so many of us waking up and coming out now, because a lot of people are finally starting to wake up you go, oh, wait, this is not what we're supposed to be doing, or this is not how we're supposed to be living. But they don't know what to do with it. And I agree with Linda G. I've heard her talk about this and
Oh,
several
yeah.
others, that one of the reasons why there was such a long, strong block of us that kind of all showed up about the same time was we all got activated.
You know, it's funny. Look, I got the card of the Knight of Wands, and they were telling me things were activated. Just clarify what you just said.
Yeah. We've all been activated because
Wow.
we're here to lead the next generation of light workers to expand. And it's not until we expand that we're going to get past this need to kill each other, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm getting chills again, man. I can't believe you pulled that card up. It's like, whoa.
I swear, when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's what this card means. Because I felt like things are getting ignited, and I thought with the song, but it's just that song is part of what's already been doing. Like that's why the Linda G and like you came on and all that before that, because it's going like wildfire. The energy
Yeah.
goes.
I mean,
And
when I
even though
first stumbled,
I'm sorry.
yeah, when I first stumbled into this community, there was maybe 10 readers, 15 readers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you'd have to look for somebody to find a live stream because, you know, they weren't all the time. And now there are so many, I can't even keep track of who all is readers now. You know, and I hear some of the ones, those of us who were kind of at the forefront. It's like there was the first batch and then there was our batch. You know, we kind of followed in on the tails of the first group. And now we've got all these other people coming in. You know, and I'll hear people say, well, I'm trying to schedule it when no one else is on. And I'm like, that doesn't exist anymore because there's always somebody on now. There's always somebody talking about this. Just pick your time, what works best for you and your guest, and go. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
And you know what? You don't want the same people watching. You want
No.
there's like 8 billion people. You want to attract new ones.
And
So
if someone's
go for
meant
it.
to see your show with that guest,
Exactly.
Spirit will bring them there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
And you know what? That energy that Cherry mentioned earlier about the Linda G and the fire starting, and now we have this song, which this song is basically the message for 2024. That make the light win a little bit further. Here's the equal, right? The chariot movement. But who's winning? The light is a little bit more ahead than the dark. So this all this
But they
energy
need each
pushing
other to
through.
balance. But they,
That your dog?
yeah, both of them. Sorry, guys.
So that's
But
good
they
sign.
need,
That's a good
they
sign.
need each other to balance. Oh, hush. The light and the dark need each other to go forward. Because when you're in the dark, you need the light to see where you are and to get out. And no matter how dark it is, all it takes is one little spark of light and it shows up and everybody can see it. It may be just a speck off in the distance, but it's there and we can see it. But you would never see the light if it wasn't dark around you because it would blend in with all the other light.
Yeah.
And so that's where that balance comes.
But the light is a little bit ahead because of working like it transforming the shadowy aspect. So I have to leave.
I know you have to leave, so go ahead and go. I'm going to take about another 10 minutes here and kind of wrap things up in case anybody has a question.
But I do want to leave with thank you, Sherry, for inviting me. We're going to do more videos. The 2024 do look
I didn't
more.
know we were going to end up discussing this. We had completely kind of planned for something else, but then
February we're going to do more prediction.
Yeah, we're going to do more predictions in February. So,
but 2024 all relies on you. There are things in action that's already happening to help them, the collective. the liturgy type. Then you got this song. It's already in action, but don't let them do it. Work on you doing things you love. Don't worry about
It
like
all
trying to
starts
make
here.
other people. Right.
It all starts here.
We can control others, really. So if you do things you love, it's
Yeah.
doable. It's doable. Do the little things, whatever that is. And that really is the message for 2024. I didn't think we were going to do about John Lennon or the Beatles, but the universe already provided us information.
Yeah. They were quite insistent. No, this is your topic today.
So it's perfect. And it makes me feel happy hearing that whole thing that Chari was saying and what the message was. And I haven't heard the song. I have no idea. So if you have that many people who already know about it, can you imagine when?
I'm not sure what the current
But you said
view
54
count
million?
is. The last time I looked at the view count was last night around 11 p.m.
That's what
And it
I'm
was like
saying. Wow.
7.85 million views.
Wow.
And that was just the video itself, not all the other stuff that went with it,
That's
Yeah,
amazing. So you
it is
take care.
amazing.
I'll let Cherry finish off. Take care.
Bye, darling. Okay, now y'all stuck just with me. Um, thank you very much to Silvia for coming on and and hanging. What's that you're saying, Oline? Playing for change. Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've seen people do that. I know one of the a cappella groups that I like to listen to a lot, Voice Play, they did a thing during the COVID lockdown. They did a song called Sing, and they just had all these other artists from young people to other a cappella artists to other just regular singers that all like jumped in online and we're all singing together. It's really awesome. Um, they did that, and I've seen several other groups do that as well. I know. Yes, everyone vote. That's very very important. Absolutely. Um, we have we just had our governor's election a few weeks ago. It's the worst turnout of people to vote than this state has ever had in multiple decades. And because of that, the Trump sycophant frontrunner is going to be our new governor. He won, just blew it away because nobody showed up to vote except for the nuts that support him. I mean, it was amazing when I heard the counts of how down it was. Um, there are some other big elections that are coming up this next week, governors and or senators races, because those don't always happen the same time a presidential race happens. That's why it's so important to stay, to get on the mailing list or the newsletter list of your state government or your local government. That way you'll know what's happening and you can go pop in and vote. Um, because it's very important. I mean, if those of us who don't agree with what leadership is doing, if we just sit at home and bitch about it, what's going to happen? Nothing. We want it to change. We got to get up off our behinds and go out and vote. Go out and get other people to vote. Um, go volunteer at the polling station if you get the day off, because they're always needing people to help work that. That's a volunteer position. People that work the voting booths, they don't get paid for that. They're not Democrat or Republican. They're just people that want to give back to their local government. Um, so that's very important. If you can take the day off and work, in a polling station, do it. Um, if you live in a neighborhood where the majority of people are either very poor or very elderly and they don't have vehicles, volunteer to be a taxi for the day and take people to and from the polls. Fill up your car, bring them there, drop them off, and then, go back home, pick up another load, bring them there, drop them off. They certainly can't give you a ticket for giving somebody a ride. It's the same as Uber. You're just not charging. So it's that's okay, Shawn Woman. I had a rough morning too. But it's very important for us to be involved and to pay attention to what's going on around us. Because a lot of the things that's happening in DC are available and easy to be done because we were all asleep at the wheel locally and allowed the nutsos to get in charge. They get in charge, they start changing the rules. They start changing the rules, it's harder and harder and harder to get them out and get somebody decent back in. So it all works together. And it all comes down to what the Beatles as a whole, their message to everyone was to love one another, accept one another, and just love each other. And you're right, Fatima, people have to work in unity to help each other. I mean, if you've got a neighbor with kids and you see that those kids haven't eaten in a day or two, go cook a big meal and bring it over. Say, oh, hey, I had some extra. I thought maybe you could use it. You don't have to tell them you made it just for them unless you want to. If my son met a guy who works one of the bands that he does sound engineering for. And the guy in this band, he likes to go shopping at Goodwill. And he'll see clothes or shoes or, whatever. And immediately will think, oh, that'll look good on this band member. Oh, that'll look good on that band member. And he'll buy it and just go bring it to them next time they get together to play. Here, I got you a shirt. Or I got you a hat. Or, whatever. My son came home from a gig with him last night. He's like, look, he bought me a shirt. He got it Goodwill, and it's like a great shirt. And it's nothing major. He maybe put out $5 for it. And it made my son feel like $1 million. It makes you feel appreciated. Somebody does stuff like that for you. When you just stand up and let somebody have your seat on the bus or the train or, whatever kind of public transportation you're on. You pull up to Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever to pay for your food, and then you pay for the guy that's behind you. They have no idea you're doing it until they pull up to the window and find out that, no, the guy in front of you paid for your food. I mean, how would that make you feel if you, pulled up to the window digging change out of the cushion seats to get a Coke or a bag of fries, and you pull up and you hear, oh, the guy in front of you already paid for your meal. No charge. I mean, what goes around comes around. We have to work together on all of this. And we have to learn to love each other just as we are, with all of our flaws and all of our bumps and bruises and, bad habits and stupid sayings. And it's just to be accepted, learning to love unconditionally. And it's not just learning to love someone, but it's learning to accept it back. And I think that's where the message of this song came across so well to me, was John had written this song and put on it for Paul. Because I firmly believe he did it as a love letter to his brother. Because at that time they had had a falling out. They weren't really talking that much, a little bit, but not much. But John left that message for Paul. Now and then, think of me now and then, And it was kind of like a love song. And it took, 40 years for Paul to be able to finally send it back as a completed project. Say, I love you too, brother. We're in it together. And that's power. That's powerful, not just for yourself and the recipient, but for anyone and everyone around you that sees it. That's power. So I'm going to wrap this up. I got Sun Psychic Gene coming on in 35 minutes. So if you're not doing something else, come back at 2 o'clock and we'll see what's going to go on with she and I. I have no idea. Another anything goes. It's been a crazy weekend, I'm telling y'all. So I'll be back and I will see all of y'all in 30 minutes. I'm going to go to the bathroom now. Go smoke a cigarette. Shh, don't tell nobody. Y'all be good. Take care. And I will see everyone later. Thank you for letting me into your life. And I love all of you very much. Big love. Bye for now.